let's bring in a guest. All right, let's bring in Kurt Hansen. He is the founder of Motorsports Media Group. Whenever you hear racing discussed in this area, Kurt Hansen is usually right in the middle of that discussion. Kurt,
and
come on in.
Be.
How are you, man?
I'm good. Good to see you.
In a while.
Yeah,
You good?
Woodruff, good to see you.
Oh, and,
if I'd known we were going colorful today, I would have.
You did,
but I got the sock. I got the sock message.
No socks. Yeah.
No socks. Yeah.
He's wearing socks.
I know.
In the winter, he doesn't wear socks. In the summer, he wears socks.
I don't. This is
I
my.
was noted for like 30 years for not wearing socks, and everybody would make a big point out of it. But it's good to see you again. We haven't seen you.
You too.
We saw you at Cool River one day.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. Yeah, it's the first thing that came to my mind last night.
We have you here for an obvious reason.
Well, we like you. That's
of
that's
course.
boy, that's taking a big
we
stretch.
needed an expert to talk about this. The race car driver, the IndyCar driver, Justin Wilson, died after getting hit by some debris in a race last weekend. IndyCars don't have canopies, so the debris came from the crash of another car, hit him in the head, put him into a coma. He died a few days later. He was a friend of yours, yes?
Very close friend. Yes. It's been a tough week.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Our
and I
condolences.
watched it live, which I've seen 4 or 5 times in my career. So,
did it make sense to you before this happened that many drivers don't drive with canopies covering their heads? And do you think that's going to change the way they go about their business going forward?
Well, there's been casual conversation about canopies in Formula One cars and Indy cars, which are both open cockpit cars. I think a lot of the futurists have been, pushing for that because it looks cool, it's very sexy looking, but there's a real practical side too, and the NHRA adopted canopies a couple of years ago. Now, having said that, it's not a rule in the NHRA that you must have a canopy, but there's so many moving parts in this thing. It adds a lot of weight to the car, technology, it changes the way the car does everything, and it really is a have or have-nots thing. So if you can afford canopies, it may be an alternative, but
but you say, can you afford? I mean,
I know, Les. I know.
Can you afford to die? I mean, don't you need these things? Look, in baseball, there's now a rule, and there has been for decades. You need to wear ear flaps on your helmet.
Right.
In hockey, been a rule for a couple of decades now. You need a helmet to play the game of hockey because that ice is a hard surface. In a sport where you're going 200 miles an hour plus, doesn't it only make sense to protect these guys?
Yes,
gals?
but here's the crux. If you look back in the history of motorsports, this is a very, very, very rare instance. I mean, James Hinchcliffe was hit in the head a couple of years ago at Indy, suffered a concussion, smaller component from the car that was dislodged and hit him in the helmet. But it's so rare that I think there's big factions that are for it, that are against it. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that have to happen for that to happen. Is it a good move? Absolutely, it's a good move. But it's not like baseball where every batter that comes to plate could be hit in the head. How many pitches are thrown in a game? Hundreds, I would assume.
200, 250.
Yeah, so there's 250 opportunities during a baseball game for a player to be struck in the head. There's 33 cars on the track most of the time. And if you start breaking that down, 16 races a year, this year 12, the season wraps up this weekend in Sonoma. But the percentages, I hate to say it, but
they're small.
It is very small. Yeah. So is it a great idea? Yes. Big cost factor? Absolutely. Completely would change the series. And again, we'd be back to the have and the have-nots because you can't mandate that like they did the Hans device a few years ago, which you must have to go on the track, which is to hopefully prevent what killed Dale Earnhardt Sr., but I hate to say it, there's probably some guy with an actuary table that could tell us exactly down to the decimal point what the opportunity is.
Sure. I said yesterday, Kurt, that I've covered the Indianapolis 500 a dozen times, and I was more concerned about the fans. And we hear less over and over again about in NASCAR and in open car driving that the car flies into the net or the fence, or parts fly over the fence and kill spectators or badly injure them. And you bring that up and people say, well, you can't remove a whole section of the Indy 500 track. There's 250,000, you can't protect all of them. But making the baseball reference again, we're going through an issue
Yeah.
in baseball, all of us, of do you put netting up and down? Because we just had another case of a pitcher saying, you gotta protect the fans more.
Foul
You
balls
talk
in the
about
stands,
250 pitches and 250 possibilities of somebody getting hit by a bat or a ball or whatever it might be. And I brought up, I love to go to the museum in Indianapolis. It's right there on the corner of the track. And go in and watch the history of, and the beginnings, the foundings of the Indy 500, Indy car driving. And you see those original cars that were going 40 miles an hour around the track. And
With
they
a
were
mechanic.
open. They were open and they didn't have canopies. I would like to see, and you were talking about the cost. Now you got to redesign the car, airflow, which is always an important thing to try and keep the car on the ground and not become an airplane. And that suddenly you've got to totally retool, it would seem to me, the car. But I flew with the Blue Angels one time, and they have a canopy, and it will. You can eject yourself, but you can eject the canopy. And it would seem to me like at some point they got to develop some sort of glass top that's the future of it, even if it happens rarely. And when we talk about in golf, you can get hit by a golf ball. That happens every once in a while. Somebody gets a concussion or dies somewhere in the world. And it happens in every sport. That's the reality of sports.
You can't, and this has been a lot of the conversation that has gone on, and this has been going on for a while, that are the cars too safe? Because if you look at the car and as a whole, but you look at an open cockpit, the cockpit is, yes, part of the car, but the cars now are engineered to be very safe, and big crashes are very survivable, especially in NASCAR now. But it's an open cockpit car. It's an open wheel car. That's part of the history and part of the lore of the sport. And there will be traditionalists, I think, that will have a big problem with the canopy, like we saw in the NHRA. I mean, they talk about a sport that has got a very traditionalist and maybe a graying audience.
Well, no, hockey is full of traditionalists as well,
Yes.
who love fighting. But hockey is doing a good job of eliminating fighting from the sport. Why can't it be done? I mean,
You can't eliminate crashes, Les.
Well, I understand that, but you can eliminate.
You can't tell them, don't drive fast enough to crash.
You can mitigate the possibility of death from those crashes.
Yeah, but they've done a good job at that. This is not because of a poor safety design or the car wasn't inherently safe. The cars are tremendously safe. Now, you watch this year at Indy, you watch some of the crashes, and even at Pocono, there were two big crashes. Charlie Kimball had one of the worst I've seen in forever, and the guys get out and they walk away. So the cars are safe. They're not devoid of being safe. When Senior died, there was a lot of conversation about that because the seat technology was very old, and there was a lot of issues there. They've since changed that. The NHRA had a lot to do with that in terms of seat design. And you look now at the current generation IndyCars and NASCARs, I mean, you're in a Kevlar and carbon fiber cocoon. And ironically, again, talking about percentages, the nose cone, all these cars are designed to come apart and dissipate energy. The nose cone, too, but it's also very thick. It's Kevlar and carbon fiber. It's very light. It wasn't heavy that impacted Justin's helmet. If you take a 100-mile-an-hour nose cone and a 100-mile-an-hour race car, you can do the math. It's 200-mile impact. And he was unconscious and unresponsive when they got to the car, which means that, I mean, just the sheer blow, hopefully, my good friend, he didn't suffer. But the cars are very safe. I think you'll see a lot of canopy talk now. Ironically, the NHRA is testing this week. They're off, and one of the preeminent PR people in the country sent me a picture of her new car. And the only thing they've done to it new is now extended a very, very thick impact-resistant plexiglass shield up to the top of her helmet now. So you'll see rudimentary attempts at this kind of stuff as a stopgap. In drag racing, it's very rare that you have an accident in front of you and debris hits you because it's very much a side-by-side sport. Yeah, but the cars are safe. It's very freakish that it happened. But I think you'll see a lot of conversation now. And Justin just actually had a solution, if I can wrap up real quick. He told me at the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb this year, he was supposed to race in a Honda prototype. We spent 3 days together. He suggested to me the week before, because he's a very safety conscious guy, that exactly to Woody's point, is the grandstands are on the outside of the track. Centrifugal force takes all that debris and pushes it through the fence into the stands. on the big ovals, move the spectators to the inside of the corners. You absolutely eliminate the problem because you never see that debris come to the infield. It goes out.
Kurt, really appreciate you coming by.
Thank you, sir.
And,
Good
and
to
your
see you.
perspective
You
on
too,
this.
Wood.
And again, our condolences
Yeah.
concerning your friend.
The sport will live on. We all live on.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Les.
Kurt Hansen, founder, Motorsports Media Group. Where can people see you on the air or listen to you?
Boy, we're on 3 major networks. We're on Mile High Sports every Friday night from 6 to 8. We also have a Phoenix show now from 2 to 3. And we're in about 80 million households nationally on 3 different networks. So I would say the easiest way to find us is just go to the website, racecentralmedia.com.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.